Welcome to the summit, Break Through That Career Plateau. I'm your host, Linda Butler. If you're a woman in mid-career, midlife, at a career crossroads, feeling stuck, but knowing you're capable of more and wondering if it's too late to change, well, the answer to that is no, and you're in the right place. And in this summit, you are gaining inside access to top experts who are here to help you learn how to recognize and confidently communicate your zone of genius, so you can identify new opportunities, create that momentum, and take action to create that dream next role. Today, I am happy to introduce one of those experts, our speaker, Lucia Knight. She is a midlife career satisfaction designer and researcher. She spent 20 years in the world of corporate headhunting in UK and Australia before giving it all up to embark on an MSc in psychology, where her dissertation focus was, does anyone in big corporations give a hoot about the wisdom of 50-plus-year-olds? I just love that. I gotta ask you more about that in a minute. She runs a career design consultancy called Midlife Unstuck, where she helps midlife professionals who feel career stuck to design work that is much more satisfying, fulfilling, and fun. So a perfect person to be speaking here today, and welcome, Lucia.
Lovely to be here. Nice to invite me. Thank you very much.
Yes, just thrilled to talk to you. So if you don't mind, if I could ask you a little more about your journey, maybe how you got into this area of work, and maybe just a little bit about your dissertation. What did you find out from does anyone in big corporations give a hoot about us over 50s?
So I just turned over 50. So I was doing that research when I was in my 40s, but when I spent 20 years in corporate headhunting, and the last 3 or 4 years of those really I was in some sort of messy fog. I just couldn't figure out what was wrong, but I knew it was wrong. And I didn't know how to escape. So contrary to how I advise my clients, I decided to go back to university and took a leap of faith, thinking that would be the right thing to do, and did a master's in psychology, where I focused on career happiness, mostly from a personal perspective. I wanted to figure out the underlying reasons behind career unhappiness and to figure out ways out. So in my final 6 months of my dissertation, I researched whether I believed or whether it was apparent that corporates were valuing the wisdom of 50-year-olds and how it was accumulating and where they were going. And I saw what I had already seen in my last sort of 5 years of career. The older we get in our careers, the less valuable, I believe, we are to big corporates. Yeah, so I wrote an article in my very first months of creating Midlife Unstuck, and it was called 50-Year-Old Corporate Toast. And to this day, it's still the most read article on my website. And it really uses the toaster and the toast analogy to say that as we get older, we are sitting in a corporate a toaster, where we are becoming gently toasted until at one point we are popped out. And I believe, and I created Midlife Unstuck to try to catch people before they are toasted, before they are burned, so that they can design a way to do fulfilling, enjoyable work without waiting until the toaster ejects them.
Wow. I love that analogy. It's very striking. And like so many women in 40s and 50s, I had something similar. So when I listen to your story, I'm like, gosh, that sounds so familiar. And it was, the first reaction sometimes is, what the heck is wrong with me? Because you realize that all of a sudden the things that seemed okay and normal and, life is good. And then you're starting to feel this urge to change and do something different. So how do you, as what is your guidance, I guess, to women that before they get to the burn part of the toast and get popped out, what should they be doing? What should they be focusing on?
So I'll just share with you my formula for a lifetime of satisfying work. So let me just caveat this with saying this is a simplistic top level formula, but it's a great way if you're sitting in fog to just think, what are the 3 or 4 things I need to lock in before I can go forward? So the formula is, imagine a Venn diagram. So the first circle in the Venn diagram is use your superpowers daily. I'll just explain the Venn diagram and come back and explain each. Use your superpowers daily. The second is point your superpowers at a super problem that is super interesting to you. And the third is get paid to do that. Okay, so those are the 3 elements, but around that, surrounding those 3 circles is a sea of kryptonite. Okay, and that's what I'd love to focus on today, is because kryptonite is a word that I use to describe to clear the fogginess of what's wrong. So in the last probably 3 or 4 years of my working life in corporate, I'd wake up every morning, just like you said, and wonder, is it me? Or is this it? You know, how? I just could not imagine myself staring down the barrel of another 20 years doing something similar in a similar environment. But a really good place to start with is figuring out what people, places, or environments or activities are stopping you operating at your best. And I call this kryptonite. Yeah. So let me give you some examples. So this is a brilliant place to start. If you're sitting in a sea of fog and you're unclear of how to go forward, I encourage all of my clients just to start to figure out their kryptonite, to get it out of the fogginess of their head and down on paper. So for instance, one of my kryptonites is working in open plan offices. I am strongly introverted, yet I spent 20 years in open plan offices. No walls, not even cubicles, just tables, which means that I need silence to conclude thoughts. And there was never silence. There was always, I was in management, so there was always people asking questions. There were no offices available, and it was really difficult for me to operate my best. So what I would do is come in earlier than everyone every morning or stay later, just so that I could have the quiet time. So that gives you an example of one kryptonite. Another part of kryptonite might be sitting in meetings that are structured in ways that don't work with you, or a boss who doesn't appreciate your values. So understanding kryptonite and getting it out of your head and onto paper can really be a starting point of moving forward to then figure out what your superpowers are. Shall I explain superpowers in my world?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. So you start with the things that you know drain you or not serving you. In other words, that's exactly the starting point. Okay. And then the next step would be like
figure out your superpowers
that lights you up, I guess.
Yes. So these, they're not just things or people or places. Superpowers are actually activities. They're controlled by you. They are activities that when you do them, you could have more energy at the end than at the beginning. They are the activities that when you're doing these activities, you feel them in your body somewhere, usually around your central body. So your belly, your heart, they feel good because they connect with your values. Or you could these are the kind of activities that you can do them faster, more lightly, more naturally, more easily than anyone else you know. But because you can do them more lightly, more naturally, more speedily than anyone else you know, I find women in particular do not value them. So they can be really hard to find. But once you've, and typically, I believe we have 3 or 4 of those. And if we can find, we maybe have many more, but if we can find 3 or 4, these become the corner pieces of our happier, more enjoyable, more satisfying work formula. Yeah. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And, I'm thinking that to your point of women don't always value those. I think in some cases they may not even recognize
absolutely
that they're really good at this, but they may assume everyone's really good at that. How do you yeah, go ahead.
And that's so true, especially of women, also of men, but especially of women. And so I have this process where I take people through over a couple of weeks where I ask them to slice their career up in a very different way to only find the very positive experiences. And then we pull those apart and analyze them. And there is a point during this process where they have an aha moment where they go, really? Not everyone does that. And then we pull it apart and they begin to see that this is a very unusual skill or talent, or even other people might have a similar one, but they've worked really hard at it, whereas this is very natural. So for instance, I'll give you one of my superpowers. So asking one more question than is socially acceptable. Now, this could be a little controversial, yeah? So it's worked brilliantly for me in my career, in research, in interviews. I've interviewed tens of thousands of people over my career. So I can usually find a nugget that others don't often see, and I can find it easily and joyfully. But sometimes it's seen as a negative by my husband or by my neighbors or by someone in the supermarket who doesn't want to feel psychoanalyzed in the supermarket. But it's a huge skill that brings me joy. I do it every minute of the day and I've built my career around it. So it's one little corner of a career design that brings me joy. I just have to be careful that I don't point it at my husband very often.
Understood. Yeah. And does it differ, do you think, your superpowers from work tasks? So the things that you've gotten really good at just because it's been repetitive, could it be that, or are they different? How would you?
No, it's absolutely not the same as that. So I think what you're talking about is perhaps strengths, maybe not natural strengths, but developed strengths, where, as you say, repetition has meant that you have become very good or one of the best or the best in the company or in the team at something. But the real crunch point is, does it give you energy? Does it feel joyful when you do it? Is it something that you have to do, whether it's needed, wanted, or valued? And that's how you know it connects with your values. Whereas what you've described, we can all become pretty good at something if we do it enough. But mostly we get to average when we do that. And I think superpowers are way above average. I think you used the term zone of genius. Yeah. So it's way above strengths. It's way above learned behavior. There is something intrinsic in our motivation, in our values, that we can do this very, very naturally. So if you're going home at the end of the day, absolutely exhausted, you're not using your superpowers enough.
Wow. Yeah. I'm curious. A lot of times when you're working, you get really good at something, and they talk about, if your head's down, you're something where you lose track of time. Yeah. Is that the same thing as superpowers, or is that slightly different?
I think it can be a good starting indicator, but it's probably not deep enough. So we can all become really good. Repetition, we can become good at absolutely almost anything if we're physically capable. And what you've described is the flow state. And sometimes you can be doing your superpowers and hours will pass. So it can be an indication, but I think the other indicators are stronger. So if you are feeling a connection in your body, because this activity that you're doing connects with your values, and if you are energized or more energized after doing your superpowers or that activity than you were at the beginning. I think that energy piece is often overlooked in the market. We don't really, at the end of the day, we just go, oh, I'm exhausted. Yeah. And that's sometimes just a mantra that's not very helpful. But if at the end of the working day, you are continually exhausted, there is no way that you're using your superpowers enough. Absolutely no way.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And that makes sense. That you need to recognize the right way to use them, and that energy. I understand what you're saying about the energy flow, that you feel lit up as opposed to drained from using them. That makes a lot of sense.
And so as we get older, I'm sorry. As we get older, we have less energy to manage. So energy consumption and just an awareness of how much energy we have, how we use it, where we point it, is super critical for a sustainable, enjoyable, satisfying career.
Got it. So I'm what is the next step, I guess, once you feel like you have a good handle on what your superpower and kryptonite, what do you normally do next with those?
Yeah, so as long as you understand your kryptonite and it is clearly out of your head and down on paper somewhere, so you know what to avoid, then you understand your superpowers, at least 3 or 4 of them, then you know what you need to design into tomorrow. So the third piece is, or the final piece is, what problem are you excited to solve or contributing to solve? So I see this a lot in people of our age. They want to do something more worthwhile or more fulfilling or more valuable, and they automatically assume that that will be some sort of charitable venture. Yes, but I often pull people straight back from that to say that the first 2 parts are important. You cannot work in your kryptonite and you must be using your superpowers. And the problem that you are interested in solving doesn't necessarily need to be in charity. It could be in any corporate, it could be in a owned business, it could be in a partnership, it could be a multiple sort of portfolio career is the term we use here, where you have 3 or 4 different ways that you earn your living, but all of them must avoid your kryptonite and celebrate your superpower. So that's where we go next. Which problems do you want to focus on? And then after you've decided that, how do you put it together in a way that you can make enough money to enjoy the life that you want to or choose to or deserve to enjoy?
Lovely. Yeah, that's great. I think that makes a lot of sense. And it's a different way to approach it, isn't it? Than rather just focusing on the things that you've done. It's more internal of who you are as a person.
And I think you're right. It does involve a lot of searching, I guess, but the answers are always inside until you get to that point of which problem you want to focus on. But that still connects with your values, that still connects with your needs, that still connects with how you want to play your life out. So the internal search is something that certainly in my corporate life, I didn't spend any time on this. We did training courses every now and again, and they were all wonderful, but I just put the results of the training course in a box somewhere and never look at it again. This is very connected so that you understand the inner you, and then you try to match it to the outer you and what you want your future to look like. And most of us can't even answer that, can we? I certainly couldn't 7 years ago. I had no idea. If somebody said to me, Lucia, what work do you want to do? I don't know. I just don't know. But I think starting on the inside means we actually do know the answers. We just need a method to get them out.
Great. Yes. And that concept too, that will continually shift over time. It's not we're just in one place doing the same job. It's okay to use your superpowers in different ways as you proceed through life.
And exactly. And so superpowers aren't related to the industry that you're in or the exact job title that you have. They are the activities. They are the how you do that job. They're the how you work in that industry. So they're absolutely unique to you, and you can just choose to point them at different problems in the world. And once you've got that concept, it's likely that at the next 5 years, you will have another moment where you will become stuck, or 2 years later. It just builds a little dynamism into career design that certainly I don't see very much of in corporate worlds, and I didn't experience when I was in the corporate world. And that dynamism gives us control and power and freedom to, if we're not enjoying this enough, to pull back a little bit and decide another problem to point it at. And that really excites me.
Yes, I would agree. It does me too. And the word authentic was kind of coming in the back of my mind. That word sometimes can be overused, but in a way, that's what it is. It's really understanding who you are and how you use your gifts. Yeah.
And it's deciding, it's very powerful because it's deciding how you use your gifts, understanding them, knowing them, and then deciding. And that can be a bit scary too, but I love the power that we have to do that.
Yes, it does sound empowering to know that and be able to, it's more of a choice that you're making as opposed to reacting. Yeah.
Perfect. It's proactive rather than reactive. Perfect. Oh, absolutely. Brilliant.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share your wisdom. I think this was really an intriguing way to approach thinking about making a change, and it's a little different than what you hear a lot of people talking about. So I think it's really helpful. Do you have one tip that you would leave those listening with that they could start implementing right away to kind of get started in this process?
So, absolutely. So I guess built into the methodologies and the work that I do is this dynamism. And a lot of us sometimes, if we're feeling stuck in one place, I've forgotten how to be dynamic. So I'd suggest that anyone listening who's feeling a little bit career stuck looks at their diary tomorrow and makes a decision on one thing they want to do more of tomorrow and one thing they want to do less of tomorrow, and then do what is necessary to make that happen. It could just be change 5 minutes of tomorrow, but it gives you that feeling of dynamism and that feeling of control, and it doesn't take long.
Great tip. And very easy to implement. So thank you for sharing that. And you have a free gift that you're going to share with the audience. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. It's a little worksheet, and it's called Get Clear on Your Kryptonite. I think it's the very first place I start any work with my clients, and it's relatively easy, and it will give you a little feeling of momentum, but it walks you through 5 different questions and gives you lots of hints on how you might answer it. And at the end of a maybe 15-minute pen, paper, or cup of coffee, you will have a much clearer idea of your kryptonite, which will help you then go forward.
Great. And what a great thing to offer. So definitely take advantage of that if you have the opportunity. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Absolute pleasure. It's been lovely to be here with you, Linda.
Yes, thank you so much. And I enjoyed it. And well, thanks again for being here and for sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us. And we will have your link to your free gift, as well as all of your contact information below this video. And please take advantage of the VIP All Access Pass if you want to go back and re-listen in the future, because I know I can always get a few more tidbits when I re-listen to something. So that's available if you purchase the VIP All Access Pass, which I will also put that link below. So thanks again.
Brilliant. Thanks, Linda.